What is everybody? Welcome to the Optimal presented by FTN Network. We're here live on a Wednesday, and we have a pretty exciting one on our hands today. Going to bring on our first guest of the show, and it's a pretty exciting one. I will say so myself. It's FTN's newest Millie Maker winner, John Kelly, who's joining us to talk about his lineup and some of his DFS experience and all that good stuff. It'll be a great time. So we're going to run the intro here, and then we're going to bring John in and talk about his $387, I believe, $1,000 takedown. So obviously a huge night for John and his family. So we're going to talk about that and talk about some stuff that he does on the UFC side of things at FTN Daily. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Every day, DFS players set out in search of the perfect lineup.
Great Scott!
To help you craft the best lineup in the land, FTN's Kyle Murray is here to take you through one of the most powerful tools in the DFS world.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
It's The Optimal with Kyle Murray.
All right, so enough of me. Let's bring in the star of the show, Mr. John Kelly. At John Kelly DFS is where you can find him on Twitter. You guys may know him for some UFC stuff that he's been doing over the past few years and personally helping me build my bankroll on the betting side of UFC, which I do very much appreciate, John. So how you doing today? I'm sure you're feeling pretty good on this Wednesday after a fantastic Monday night. How you doing? And appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me on the show. First guest, I feel like that's a pretty big deal. So excited to be your first guest. I am kind of disappointed, though, I'll be honest, because I saw on the NBA show you were rocking the fresh cut, and I thought I was going to see it today, but you got the hat going on. So I'm a little disappointed there. I made sure, to do my hair because I wanted to match your flow. But yeah, excited to talk about the lineup and chat with you for a few minutes.
Yeah, man, last time I didn't rock the hat, I got too many comments about the hair. Most of them are good, but I don't want to be blushing on the show. So all jokes aside, though, I appreciate the comment on the cut. Yours is looking nice as well. But let's hop into the good stuff here, talking about your Monday night. First of all, I want to start with, some things that are showdown related. So usually every Monday and every Thursday, I'll run through some showdown stuff and talk about how to build lineups using the optimizer and stuff like that. But obviously you ran two lineups in the Millie Maker, which was a $20 entry, and you chopped for first between you and two other people, so a 3-person chop for $387,000. So first of all, I guess we can talk a little bit about how you approach showdowns. If you approach them more of like an entertainment value, or if you're grinding out certain aspects of the showdown, and then I guess talk a little bit about your lineup and how you got to where you were. We can pull up your lineup in a little bit, but I'll let you talk first for a minute.
Yeah, for sure. So for starters, I actually don't play every showdown slate. Like I'm not a huge showdown guy for starters, because it's so difficult, like especially like on a normal, normal showdown slate, whatever. This one in particular, I did play just because it was the weather game, right? Like blizzard-like conditions. So I thought, right off the hop, there'd be probably a lot of dead money there. People just not paying attention, knowing that it's a weather game. There's not going to be a lot of passing plays, etc. But also because in a showdown, and again, I'm for sure not a showdown expert, but just in general, I think a lot of people would agree you want to kind of have your lineup tell a story. So I thought that was a lot easier to do with a weather game. There'd be a lot of running, etc. So I just think right off the bat, those were two things, like a lot of dead money and an easy game flow to predict. So really that's half the battle. And the other half is just trying to find a way to be unique and have the upside to actually win. And I believe that that's what I'm actually good at DFS, is just thinking a little bit outside the box, trying to be unique, doing things that a lot of other people might not feel comfortable doing. And that's typically where I've had the most success over the years. So if you want to actually get into the lineup, and feel free to cut me off at any time, but if you want to get into the lineup, like where I was kind of thinking that, a lot of people might not do. So obviously I had Damien Harris captain. So I thought he'd be a popular play. I didn't know how I actually thought he'd be a little bit more popular as a captain. He came in at like 9% captain. And I just thought in a game flow that the Patriots win, which their defense has been playing well. They've been running the ball well. I just thought if they won, Harris would be a big part of that. So I felt like he was a semi-obvious captain play, but where there was basically two points in my lineup where I got different and big leverage points. And one of that was Ramondre Stevenson. So for two reasons. One, I thought he would just be, I knew he'd be played, but not that much because he actually was like splitting carries with Harris the week before. They each got like 11 or 12 or whatever. So I knew he'd get work either way. But the biggest factor was I knew a lot of people weren't going to play both Patriots running backs in the same lineup. And then you factor in all the people that did end up captaining Damien Harris. I knew only a small fraction of them would be playing Stevenson in that lineup as well. So that was like the first big leverage point that I knew would give me a way to be a little bit unique. And then obviously on the Bills side, Josh Allen, I knew everyone would play him, but you can't really, that's where you get into just being kind of stupid rather than trying to be unique is fading Josh Allen. So I played Allen, I played Diggs, thought we might get a little bit of ownership discount on Diggs just because it was a weather game. And I think we did because he came in at like 50% as opposed to like a normal weather game. He'd probably be like 75, 80. But the last leverage point was Gabriel Davis. And I knew he was going to be low for two reasons. One, he's a guy who does not play every snap. He's not on the field half the time because he's basically running as their wide receiver 4 behind Diggs, Sanders, and Cole Beasley. But, over the course of the season, if you watch the Bills game, that he's their big play guy. Like we've seen it a couple times this season, like scoring long touchdowns. Like he is on the field at least a little bit. And when he's on the field, he typically gets a few targets, sometimes breaks a big play. So I like that about him, that he could pay off in just one big play. But the other reason why I thought he'd be low owned was because of the weather. So a big play guy like that, you typically think of him as down the field receiver. I just knew factoring in that he's their wide receiver 4 and it's a weather game, I knew he would be that other second leverage point. And that was basically my thought process was I'm just trying to build as unique a lineup as I can that makes sense for a game flow in this type of weather. And I feel like this lineup did a pretty good job of that. It was just, at that point, it's like you can only do so much and then you let variance and luck kind of take you the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's everything that you said makes a ton of sense. And I think one thing that you really touched on, which I think is super important for people to kind of take home and remember when they're building showdown lineups, is that uniqueness goes a long way. I talked about this on yesterday's show on a 3-game NBA slate. Like if you think about it, every lineup that you build that is the same as another player's is going to automatically take value out of that lineup. And that's almost impossible to do in showdown because you're playing with one game and only, X amount of players in a pool. Sometimes it's, 10 to 15 players that most people are really getting to. So to be able to build lineups with as many, or I guess as little duplication as possible is huge. And especially in a massive contest like the Millie Maker. So for you to, get first place in the Millie Maker is super impressive, but to only do it with, a chop of 2 other players is very, very impressive. So I think you made a lot of sense in terms of accomplishing those goals with certain things like, pairing Damien Harris and the captain with Ramondre Stevenson. And a lot of people wouldn't have done that in general. And then you talk about taking out a large fraction of the pool that if Damien Harris were to have a solid game, nobody in the captain spot, nobody's really going to play him with Stevenson as well. And obviously the story that you were telling with this lineup, the run heavy game really came to fruition there. So overall, a very strong lineup, and it was an exciting sweat. So let's talk a little bit about the sweat. I know we were talking a little bit in Slack DMs prior to you coming in. You said it wasn't as exciting, and it sounds like me and you are a little bit alike, where these big wins, they don't really rattle us as much as maybe for some other people. Until later, I told you about one of my experiences where the real, I guess, setting in of the win didn't take place till like a week or 2 after. And you said it hasn't really set in for you. So I kind of want to talk to you about your sweat. For showdown sweats, first of all, they're insane. They go from, thousands of dollars to zero really quick because they can change in play. So for you to be, I saw you were up there in the third quarter at one point up in first place, and then you dropped down for a little bit. And then, towards the end of the fourth quarter, you were obviously back up top. So what was that like for you? Obviously showdown sweats in general are crazy. So was this one extra crazy, or were you kind of pretty calm about it throughout the process?
So I was pretty calm for the most part until the last 2 Bills drives. But
Yeah.
I actually, like, me and a couple other people were pretty much wire to wire battling it out from the moment that Gabriel Davis scored. Like I was in the top 10 or whatever. And I texted my buddy Brett, shout out to him. I sweat a lot with him throughout our various lineups. And I'm texted him and I'm like, showdown king, I'm coming for it, like as a joke. And because I mean, we know how crazy showdown is, like you
Yeah.
alluded to, like things hop around. But when Davis scored, I made that joke or whatever, and then I think he scored first, and then it was the Damien Harris like 40-yard touchdown run or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, well now I think I have a decent lineup. Like who knows? We'll see what happens. And basically kept bouncing around within the top 5 to 10 with a couple other combinations, and I was actually surprised that I was duped. Like you said, it was crazy. Only duped with 2 people. Like when going through the lineups, once Harris and Gabriel Davis scored, like I was like, oh man, I can't believe I'm duped. Like I really didn't think people were going to play that team. But then I had other people say like, I can't believe this wasn't duped more. So I don't know. I guess it just depends how you look at it. But yeah, like you said, and then we got to halftime, and I think me, Daldino, and that other player were in like tied for second or third at half, and then shortly into the third quarter we hopped up to first when Stevenson started getting a little bit more run. Harris like kind of tweaked his hamstring or whatever, and basically it came down to I needed Stevenson to outscore Nick Folk, and then I needed Patriots to outscore Bills D. Those were the 2 combinations, because somebody had the same team but Bills D over Pats D, and Pats D had 1 more point. So that's where it started to get sweaty, was at the end when I needed the Patriots D not to give up not even a field goal, because at that point Stevenson did enough where I had Folk covered with the field goal, but even the field goal would have dropped down the Patriots defense below the Bills defense, and I think I would have chopped second or third or something, which like you said, it's a massive drop off. So I was trying to stay calm throughout. Like I know these things jump around like crazy in showdown, so I was actually working on my MMA article, trying to keep myself busy and not really pay attention, because the game was super ugly anyway. Like you didn't want to be sweating out like just nonstop halfback dives the entire time. But yeah, so I was working on my MMA article, which should be out tomorrow. I'll plug that real quick at ftndaily.com for UFC this weekend, big pay-per-view card. But yeah, so I was just working on that, trying to stay busy. And then we get to the end of the third quarter. I'm still in first place, and I'm like, all right, well, now I'm starting to think I actually have a chance here. And that's when, I started to get people tagging me in Discord and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, everybody relax. Don't jinx it. Like, I'm just sitting here doing my own thing. And like I had my buddy Bobby Gomes, shout out to him, former Millie Maker winner. He texts me, he's like, good luck. I'm like, oh shit, Bobby's texting me. Like, now it's serious. But yeah, like you said, the sweat itself was sort of anticlimactic. Like I wasn't like sitting there raging, partying, or doing anything crazy. Like my wife was asleep upstairs with the baby. I was just down in the living room with my dog. My dog's like passed out next to me. And then it got down to the last Bills drive. And that's where it actually was like a real sweat for me. Cause I'm like, well, I'm still in first. I actually have a chance here. Now I just need the Bills not to score. And they march like right down the field. So I'm like, all right, well, who knows what's going to happen, but it looks like at least a field goal here. Then they got a false start, I think, that moved them back. Yeah. So then it was like 3rd and 11. So I needed, or 3rd and 14 or something like that. So I needed 2 stops from the Patriots defense. And it seemed like those were super long, man, because I'm sitting there and they did like 2 commercials. They got the Manning brothers rambling on. I'm like, can we just snap the ball and see what happens here? So I was just like petting my dog, paying attention to my dog, try not to watch. They get the 1 stop. Then it comes down to the last play, 4th and 11, because I knew the Patriots could probably mostly kneel it out if they did get the stop. And they got the deflection, batted it down. And so then it was like, even then it didn't hit me. Like, then I'm waiting like, okay, it's got to be zeros on the clock. Yeah. And then even after zeros on the clock, I'm like, stat corrections, might be stat corrections. Yeah. So like, I kind of like there was no like big celebration or anything like that, which I guess is kind of a buzzkill. But maybe we'll do something this weekend to celebrate. But yeah, it was definitely cool to see all the support from everybody, like throughout FTN, people in the Discord, very supportive FTN Discord, all the people on Twitter, the people I know throughout the industry. Like, this was like, I mean, super overwhelming. I got like literally hundreds of messages from people that seemed genuinely happy for me. So that part was honestly like cooler than actually winning, I think.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed too, is like sometimes it seems like people are at odds in this industry, but when something good happens, or when something bad happens, those unfortunate scenarios, I feel like everyone comes together, and we're all one big family, whether it's happy or not all the time. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of people are genuine about those congratulatory messages. But you mentioned some UFC stuff, and you wanted to talk about the main card. What is it? Oliveira and Poirier. I'm not really good with the pronunciations. I believe that's the fight. Is that correct?
Yep, that's the one. That's the big fight. And then there's 15 fights. So, and it's up and down, littered throughout the card with some good matchups. Usually I have my article out by Wednesday midday, but running behind this week on dad duty stuff. So it'll be out at the latest tomorrow morning. But yeah, it's super good card. A lot of big contests on DraftKings. So definitely go ahead and check that out. All our stuff, all our UFC stuff is completely free, both on FTN Daily and FTN Bets. All the plays from me and Jonah, who's I think is one of the sharpest people in the betting UFC space in general. So all of that is completely free. If you're into UFC, even if you're not, check it out. It should be a good time this Saturday.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend doing that. I don't really know a lot about UFC, but I've been tailing on the DFS and betting side over the course of the last year and a half since FTN's launched, and had a pretty good amount of success. And obviously with these pay-per-view fights, being able to turn those on and have that added sweat always makes it a little more interesting. But there's one more thing that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned earlier, and that was when you saw on that Monday Night Football that you might have had like a decided edge based on the weather. And I know that you're known, I guess, for me anyway, for your UFC stuff. Like that's what you do at FTN Daily. That's what your Twitter page is mostly about. But I've noticed that over the last year and a half or so, you've done really well in basketball. You've had several pretty strong nights in basketball. I see you in the Discord at times. And then you mentioned to me prior to us going live that you've had some success in golf as well. So it sounds like you're a multi-sport DFS player. And I wonder if you can talk about at times if you find yourself playing more contests or playing a sport that you might not play because you found an edge, whether it be something that you saw weather-wise or maybe something in a matchup or just anything really. But do you jump on particular edges, and will that kind of drive you to different sports, or playing more of a sport than you normally would have?
Absolutely. I think in general, like DFS is just a hard game as it
Yeah.
is, right? Like any sort of edge you can find, that's when you have to capitalize on it. So like, for example, you mentioned basketball. So DraftKings didn't do it this past summer. And I was overseas, so I wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. But the summer before that, they used to do what was that basketball tournament?
The Big
Can't think
Three.
of the name. It wasn't the Big Three. Man, I can't believe it's escaping me right now. Zach would know. Zach would know.
You and Zach crushed that.
Yeah, I mean that was like no bigger edge. I that was like NFL preseason from like 3-4 years ago. That's how big of an edge it was, just with ownership and stuff like that. So obviously, when you find an edge like that, like it makes that sport more fun. So like you said, obviously, if you can find those edges, then for sure, obviously, you'll get into those sports a little bit more. Golf is one that I for sure do not have an edge in, but it's just so fun that, it's just a fun cut sweat and that sort of thing. So shout out to our golf guys as well. I know they got a good thing going on there as well.
Yeah, Brandon in the chat says, are you talking about the college basketball alumni tournament? Like, I think he's the Boeheim's
It's like the million. It'll come to me in a minute. It's like they do. Man, I could even think of the players and the teams, and I can't think of the tournament name. That's embarrassing, man.
It's sometimes those things they fleet in your mind, but I know what you're talking about. A lot of college alumni were in it, so I think Brandon's also onto something. I mean, I'm sure it'll come to us eventually, but I do appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I know you mentioned that a lot of the UFC stuff is free, and obviously this weekend we have a massive card. So if there's anything else that you want to cover before we get out of here, I appreciate your time, and again, congratulations. It was fun sweating out with you, and it was fun going crazy in the Discord over the Monday Night Football win.
Yeah, no, that's it, man. I definitely appreciate you having me on. Like I said, honored to be your first guest, and thank you for the kind words. And yeah, if you guys are interested, be sure to check out our UFC product completely free. So be sure to get over there and see what you think.
Yeah, for sure. So make sure you guys are checking out John on the FTN Daily and FTN Bets UFC content, and also on Twitter at John Kelly DFS, which on the screen right now you can see the tweet. Big win for him. And I'm also really I'm a big fan for people who are very humble when they win. I know a lot of people like to win and drop the mic, but you had a nice humble message, so I'm always a fan of that. So I appreciate you joining me, and congratulations. Hopefully you spend the money in a fun and wise way. I know you have the new baby as well, so I think it came for you at a great time. So again, thanks for being here. I'm going to be doing some NBA stuff as we head on to today. So John, again, appreciate you joining me.
Thanks again. I'll see you later.
See ya. All right, so again, shout out to John for joining. Didn't want to take too much of his time up. I'm sure he's plenty busy right now with him being a new dad and all that good stuff. But again, congrats to John. And again, make sure you're following him on Twitter at John Kelly DFS. He actually does a lot of really strong UFC content. Him and Jonah do a great job at FTN Daily. I don't know a lot about it, and I like to play it a ton. So shout out to those guys there for that great content. We're going to do a little bit of NBA stuff here to close out the show. So again, shout out to John for being here. But let's hop into the optimizer here now. And we're going to let me pull up the optimizer for the NBA side of things. And we're going to look just a quick breakdown of the slate to start the day. Again, first of all, a lot of injury stuff to monitor here coming up on this particular slate. It is a massive news slate. Prior to me going live here, I found out that Kevin Durant's been ruled out. Marcus Aldridge is out. So lots of injury stuff to monitor, but we're just going to run through real quick some of the top plays. Take a look at the current optimal lineup based on the projections, all that good stuff, and then we'll get out of here. But obviously, with Wednesdays are typically a PGA show, and well, at least the new schedule is going to be a PGA show, and with the event this week, we don't have any DFS for it or anything, so decided to do some NBA stuff. And then John said he could hop on today, and I thought that was perfect timing. So again, I mean, I would have cleared the schedule to have John on, but again, it was a fantastic time. So NBA real quick, break this down. Top projected players: Jokic, Durant. Obviously, like I mentioned, he's out. Wasn't able to update those because that news was announced as I was going live here. Giannis, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, Luka are the top 5, I guess, with Kevin Durant out. One thing I wanted to point out: Steph Curry is potentially in contention for what is it? As he up against Ray Allen. I think Ray Allen for most 3-pointers made. I believe he's 15 behind Ray Allen. So hey, a big night from Steph Curry. Maybe he'll break that record here. But anyway, good matchup for Steph Curry. I do like him a pretty good amount. But one thing I wanted to touch on is the top value plays. I feel like the top overall plays are pretty straightforward. But in terms of value plays, Ayo Dosunmu, Precious Achuya, Montrezl Harrell, John Conchar, and Norm Powell are the top 5 projected values of the slate. Norm Powell's price went down after having a pretty solid game. What was it, 2 nights ago? Ayo Dosunmu, he was min price and went up to just I think it was 3,100 and went up just $800. So he's still under 4K after playing like 40 minutes last game. So he's very much in play as a value option. So although we have some, a pretty good amount of spend up options, also have a handful of strong value options as well. So that's going to do it for today's show. Just wanted to break down the NBA stuff for a minute there after we had John on. But again, shout out to John. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at John Kelly DFS. Massive night for him. $387,000 takedown for the man over there. So that'll do it. See you guys tomorrow. Hope you all have a great Wednesday night. Until next time, cheers.